Kendall.
And John.
And we're the Antonellis of Antonelli's Cheese Shop in Austin, Texas. And today we're leading you in a guided tasting. So
we are so thrilled to be with you. Meat and cheese class, cheese and charcuterie.
It's my favorite one, y'all, because girl, I'm a Texan and girl likes some meat. Yeah, I mean, for the record, I was vegetarian for many years of my life, but I feel like some of the best meat lovers are.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I think you're amazing.
So we want to make sure to dive right in. We talk a lot, just so you know, if you haven't done one of these tastings with us, we are unscripted. We are a husband and wife team. We quit our jobs on our honeymoon over a decade ago to, quote,
do something in cheese.
Literally, y'all, that's what he turned to me and said on the beach. So, and here we are a decade later. We are winning awards left and right, which is pretty cool because every day we get to get up and represent these artisans and these good salt of the earth folks making food in a way that's great for the land, their animals, delicious for us, and in turn, we try to give back to our community, and we've won some awards for it. So you're not here for all that. You are here to eat cheese and charcuterie, but just know that by you enjoying this, you are supporting our mission to do good, eat good, and good food makers everywhere. So thanks for being along for the ride. Let's talk about how we should be set up. So first of all, if your plate doesn't look something like this, which we have our 5 cheeses going down our menu, moving around clockwise, and then I have my 5 meat pairings going down our menu, moving around clockwise. If it doesn't look like this, I would say pause. There's another plating video. You could set it up really quickly in 10 minutes, but that way you get to actually sit and enjoy the tasting and you're not like fumbling with wrappers and stuff to get it open and wondering, which one are we on? So if you want just our recommendation, have your plate ready. I promise I'll let you talk a bit.
No, I'm loving it. I'm like, this is the best I get to watch my wife do.
I'm just trying to like get through the setup and get us to eat it. Okay, well, John and I always have water, often sparkling water alongside as a little palate cleanser. You could be drinking anything with this. We love bubbles. Bubbles with cheese are great. So sparkling water, sparkling wines, ciders, or today we are both drinking a blonde. So cheers to that.
Cheers, my love.
Woohoo! Okay. Pause and sip. If you want to drink a couple different things, just note the first couple, I would start out with a little bit of a lighter color and then move into your heavier, darker. So if you want to do a rosé or white and then move into your bigger, bolder reds, you could do that. Same thing with your beers. Okay. What else? We're going to guide you through the tasting. I'm going to introduce the style of cheese and the cheese itself. I'll invite you to eat it. Then we're going to talk about the meat, invite you to eat it, and then mix it up with some pairing combos along the way. We ask that you just have fun. Do it however you want to do it. But if you want to stick with us, leave a little bit of bite back of each pairing because it might be fun to mix and match, and that way you can always end on your favorite pairing.
It's so important in our life. We bonded over this on our first date. We love to finish with our favorite bite. So it could be different for all of us. So make sure you save back your favorite bite so you can finish with it.
And if you are looking at our hair like I am and thinking it looks like they both just stuck their finger in a light socket, it's because we have been hand cutting thousands of pieces of cheese today and wrapping them in our warehouse and sending out these cheese tasting boxes. This was our big pandemic pivot, and now to date we've led over 17,000 people, and that's just in our live virtual experiences. This is our on demand. So just go with us in this crazy hair. Don't care. We're going to eat good products. Other things, I've got my menus. You want to show up the cheese flavor tasting wheel just to help guide you along if you want. And with that, I think we can
do our little tasting.
Yes.
This is one way for us to get back to baseline. You know, as Kendall just mentioned, this is a December video. You know, we're recording this for y'all in December. This is our busiest time of the year, so we were packing boxes since before the sun came up, and we're here now with you today. And we'll play this at different times throughout the year, this episode. So you might be joining us in July, but we recorded this in December. And
then every quarter, though, we do mix it up.
We try to mix and match. We might use this again a couple of years from now, and who knows. But what we like to do is get the palate recentered. It's really important for us to approach this tasting with our full mindset. And so we've been doing this since the very first class we taught, and I love the process. So what I want you to do, pick up one of the mini toasts that you have, just take a little bit, pinch your nose like Kendall, take a bite, and start chewing. You'll get the texture immediately, and then you'll look for 5 things: salt, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami. And when you're like, oh, I really know what this thing tastes like, release your nostrils and exhale out through the back of your nose. Try to get air to go over the olfactory. It was probably a super bland experience on your tongue. Like, what kind of cardboard am I eating? And then,
I literally tasted nothing on my tongue when I did that. Oh, well, not, you were supposed to keep going, but now you ate. So yeah, when I had my nose closed, I taste nothing on my tongue. I just get texture, and because I can hear it and feel it, my teeth crunch through it. When I release my nose, that's when I got cracker, yeast, toast, all of that sensation.
Totally.
So it's just showing you that flavor is actually not just what happens on your palate. As John said, your tongue can only taste sweet, salt, bitter, sour, and umami. That's it. So as diverse as food can be, and you love all those flavors, your tongue is only getting 5 of those. So where does flavor really come from? Your olfactory plays a huge part. That's why when you have a cold, you can't taste as well. That's why you can't taste as well at an airplane and super high altitudes, and they put a lot of sodium into food to give it some more that feeling of flavor by being saltier. So all that is to say is much like if you've ever been to a wine tasting and you slow down, we want you to engage all your senses when eating today. Just there's so much labor of love that goes into this. So instead of just cubing a piece of cheese and with a toothpick popping it back, we're gonna look at it visually, we're gonna smell it, we're gonna eat it as we're chewing on it, we're gonna listen to it, and then we're gonna think about the finish just as you would in a wine tasting. So engage those 5 senses, but also breathe out and exhale while it's on your palate. Ideally, everything on your plate is room temperature because it allows the aroma to open up that much more, which gives it the sensation of being more flavorful.
And this is such an
And if it's
aromatic
cold
plate.
and you have the time, and then to just pause until like 30 minutes, and it'll be.
And we'll be right here waiting for you when you're back.
Okay, so I think you have calibrated our palates.
Yep.
The other fun thing, everybody's palate is different. We're going to tell you what we taste, what some common agreed upon tastings are, or flavors of this, but
everybody's different. In fact, there's 25% of the population can't pick up some of the bitter sensate components in food. And so every single one of us has had different experiences leading to this moment. So in truth, what we say is what we experience. You can have your own very special, very unique moment with these foods, and hopefully you do. That's the goal.
So as we dive in, I will just say we do a cheese 101, and it's 7 different cheeses and it's 7 different styles of cheese, and we really dive deeper into how they're made and what makes them unique, and then we pair them with chocolates, honey, meats, all sorts of goods. This one we're just focusing on 5 cheeses, 5 meats, so I'm not going to go that deep into 101. But I am going to just loosely talk about the style, but more about the makers. Yeah. So, number 1. Oh, other things on your plate. You've got your crackers. You have
sweet and savory mustard seeds.
From Antonelli's Table, our first launch. So, we can talk about these in a bit, but we saw a need where makers give it a go, and we just love them and support them for it. And this was one of my favorite products ever made. And then for some reason, it doesn't work out. So we said, hey, we'll buy the recipe from you, and our whole job is to tell your story. We'll put your name on the back of our jar and tell your story and keep repping you. So Antonelli's Table's Launch, sweet and savory mustard seeds. They have a little kick to them. You also have some Losada olive mix. Yep. These are natural olives, and so they do have pits in them, but we can talk about the different olive mixes that are in there. So your crackers, your mustard, and your olives are just little palate cleansers, little ways to shake up the pairing, little bites in between, and we might talk about them as we go. Okay.
Lovely.
I think before we talk about charcuterie, let's just give them a bite of cheese.
Let's do that.
You tell them about Green Hill.
Oh,
and
sure.
Bloomy Rinds. I just totally threw that his way. I usually kick it off, y'all.
Yeah. Well, I love Bloomy Rinds. So Bloomy Rind category, this one is the first style of cheese to have a rind on it. It's a soft ripened white rind. It's made by Penicillium Camemberti. So the cheesemaker will introduce this mold into the milk, and that mold will interact and break down the proteins. So this is like a protein mesh. Any cheese at first and curds are like a protein mesh that's holding the fat together. And when you're using these molds, it breaks down that mesh, and that's how you get some of this creamy, delicate texture on the inside. And this is Green Hill. This is an amazing American-made cheese from Georgia. And so our friends Jeremy and Jessica Little, they are...
pause. If you're already trying to take a bite, we want you to eat a little bite out of the middle first.
Yeah, good call.
In the future, you wouldn't necessarily do it this way, just as you're getting to know these cheeses. So middle bite, then a bite with the rind. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
Two different cheeses in one.
And that buttery texture, oh my.
Oh my. Oh
It's
my.
wonderful tonight. So Jeremy and Jessica, her parents founded this farm in Georgia in the late 90s, in the mid 90s. And they were doing like liquid milk, and then they started to dabble with cheese. And what ended up happening is Jessica and Jeremy, their daughter and son-in-law, decided to buy the creamery and focus on creating this really amazing brand of cheese. And so Sweetgrass Dairy became a sensation. Jeremy is the one that makes the cheeses, and he has a culinary background. So he really focuses on creating cheeses that chefs can use. That's kind of his goal and intent, creating things that can be used on salads or in dishes and things like that. And they created Green Hill, the soft ripened camembert, and it's just a real big home run, because what's so special about their dairy is that when Jessica's focus started to move away from cheese, it moved into more of the regenerative practices of the farm life. And so that means that they're trying to put more back into the land than they're taking out of it. And so we did a behind the scenes tasting with them back last year in 2020 during the pandemic. And the first 20 minutes, she just talked about soil and grass.
And now that is the building blocks for their cheese. If you don't have great milk makes great cheese. Now you can take great milk and you can mess it up, but it's hard to make a really great cheese if you don't start with great milk. And what's amazing about artisanal cheese, which is not a way to say bougie cheese or fancy cheese. After all, cheese is by and of and for the people. Cheese was a way of, when you had milk during the months that your animals were lactating and they had their babies, you could preserve that milk and hold on to it in the form of cheese. That way you'd have protein in the months when you didn't have milk. So this is a commoner's food.
Wow.
It was such a good bite.
Wow.
So it all starts with what the cows are, how they're treated, what breed they are, what they're eating. In fact, the main things that affect the flavor profile of cheese are the species. Is it cow, goat, sheep, water buffalo, camel, yak, etc.? What is the breed of it? So Montbéliard milk is different from Jersey cow milk. To what's the seasonality? Where's that animal at in its lactation cycle, and what is it grazing on that time of year? This, I totally got broccoli cheese soup.
Totally. This wheel, each wheel is slightly different. You're getting a half wheel. It's going to be different than ours, so depending on the ripeness
If
scale.
yours is really creamy and stinky, it's more ripe. If it's more innocuous and a little bit pastier, then it's just younger. Mm-hmm. Both are good. These wheels are about a bigger hockey puck, so we're each going to get different batches. To eat the rind or not, John?
That is a question we get all the time, and I'll tell you what.
Am I eating it?
Totally. So what we like to say is that you should try it. If you like it, keep eating it. If you don't, stop. And so a rind is a terrible thing to waste.
Be kind to your rind.
And no rind left behind. And so really, these have to be edible in order to be food safe and certified. But they are delicious. And in some cases, it's the rind that pairs best with like the alcohols that we're drinking, or the beverages, or the other meats that stand up to it. And so you'll find that the rind has a big, bold flavor, but it's really nicely balanced with the creaminess on the inside. And we've paired this today.
Did you say, by the way, that Green Hill is a multiple award winner?
No, I didn't.
Like 8+ ribbons and beyond in American Cheese Awards and more. Okay. So the first meat, we're going to talk about this, and then we'll talk about meat in general. But tell us about this one.
So we're doing a large format salami for you. So nice big size.
You can see this is a ground salami, so it means it's, but it's, when John says large grounds, you can see those different big proteins and fats all together. Give it a smell.
So what makes this one special, this is from Ali out of California. Mm-hmm. So Oliveria, his family has been making salami in the Rome area for over 100 years. And he decided to move to the US to kind of cut his teeth and see if he could bring that experience, that quality of craftsmanship to the United States. And so he came here around 2010, started making salami in Virginia, and the business exploded. The quality was so high, they were so successful that he ended up moving the factory to California, where he now makes all of these amazing flavors. And this Napoli is an applewood smoked, lightly applewood smoked, large format salami.
So in some ways we're starting off with gentle flavors, but really they're both pretty assertive. I wouldn't say aggressive, but right off the bat, I love this pairing together. It's just showcasing good quality cheese, good quality meat without a lot of fuss on it. And then my perfect pairing I put the two of them together with just a hint of the mustard seeds and that acid, because both the cheese and the meat are rich and fatty and palate coating. And that little bit of acid, that's what I did that. I'm really sorry y'all had to see that. I had to see it twice. I don't think I've ever done that grunt like that in a tasting.
Fun. We're all family.
Anyway,
now.
I just really like that bite by putting the Green Hill with the Napoli with the mustard seeds for a little hint of acid to cut through that richness of fat.
That was incredible.
Yeah. We've done good. All right. Cheers. And let's move on to round number 2. Oh, John is still, you're working on an olive?
I had an olive.
Okay. All right, y'all. So before we dive into cheese and our second pairing, come on, Kendall. Before we dive into our second pairing, I just wanted to press pause and talk about what charcuterie is. So oftentimes people will say, like Instagram is all over charcuterie boards and there's a craze. And in some ways that's amazing that people are excited about it. They're talking about it. I feel like the pandemic sprouted like 5,000 at-home charcuterie board enthusiasts. So what does a charcuterie board mean? Charcuterie actually does not refer to cheese, y'all. It's not cheese, and it's not pickles and all the other goods. Charcuterie is literally a French word that derives from chair or char, which is flesh, and cuit, which is cooked, so cooked flesh. So it refers to, out of the 15th century, preservation methods for meats. So how could you keep meats around when you didn't have them? How do you not waste any of the animals? So it included all, and it traditionally was pork in France. How do you include all the intestines and everything so that none of the animal is wasted, so that all keeps and it's all digestible and delicious? That's what charcuterie means. And so what we wish we could bring to you today, but it's just really challenging to get it to you in sampling format in a good shape. But there's rillettes, there's terrine, there's pâté, there's all sorts of different styles of charcuterie. Today we're mainly sticking to some cured meats. So you have your coarse ground salami, you have a tighter ground beef salami, we have a whole cured muscle, which we'll talk about, and then we have some other goods.
Small format, large format.
And this can be, but if you've got some in your market, or I'd go get, you love duck rillettes. Oh. We have a rabbit and pork cheek pâté. Again, those just don't travel as well in the sample size we need to get to you, but that is what charcuterie means, okay? And then the art of curing and salting pork goes back even longer, like 6,000 years ago into ancient Rome. So charcuterie, we need you to go spread the gospel that charcuterie refers to meat. And now, don't knock cheese. I love a cheese and charcuterie board. It's got cheese on it and it's got cured meats. But a charcuterie board itself, if you're calling it that, better have a whole lot of delicious meat on it.
Totally.
So
100%.
And many of you maybe already knew that, but that is some of us in the artisanal food world are on a gospel to spread that word. And it also doesn't mean yogurt covered pretzels and other fun things, but I love those fun things happening. We just call those grazing boards because you can graze on them all day and there's a lot happening. Okay, so as we dive into our second pairing, we're gonna go to one of my favorite cheeses ever. I think it's the second cheese we ever knew we'd carry in our shop. And this is Cuadrello Di Bufala.
That smells so good.
So style of cheese, we're moving to washed rinds. You have a bloomy rind cow's milk. Now we're moving to a washed rind water buffalo milk. Washed rinds usually have this kind of sunset hued coloring on the outside. They're red, orange, pinkish. You'll see a little molding over that. But the reason it has that sunset hue is that these cheeses are washed when they're younger in a brine solution, a saltwater solution, beer, wine, cider, spirits like Marc de Bourgogne. And what it does is it creates an environment that's so acidic that it doesn't really allow these other molds to be prolific and grow up. it really allows these bee linens or Brevibacteria linens, this bacteria, to help ripen the cheese. So bloomy rinds that we just did, they are surface ripened because of mold. These are surface ripened predominantly due to bacteria. It's also what causes the stink. So these are your stinky cheeses, although we gave you kind of a softball.
Yeah, we
This
did,
is more
but-
like kind of funky, but not stinky, I would say. Sometimes they're really stinky on your nose, but not so stinky on your palate. Sometimes they're just as stinky on your palate. And today we are going to Italy, to the Lombardy region with Cuadrello Di Bufala. This is from Quattro Portoni. Bruno and his brother, we've had the pleasure of visiting this maker. It's our goal for us or somebody in our team to physically see all the makers that we represent and that we can truly speak to their standards beyond just what a website might say. So still working on it, but that is our goal. Water buffalo milk is known for kind of this wet hay, grassy tanginess to it. Definitely give the inside a bite first.
So good.
And then you can try a bite with the rind. This is one of those where I actually do enjoy eating, me personally, the inside first, and then I eat the rind separately, more like a little snack.
Yeah, it's a great, like the rind itself is almost its own food. I love the way it tastes, and I love the way the texture flows over my palate. We got to go visit Bruno and the family, and just outside of Milan. You said that already?
No, keep going, honey. It's great. Tell the story.
Did you just say?
All I said was we visited them.
I just took a bite, and I was thinking about how
You were
good
being
the flavor
transported.
was. Yeah, like,
That's what a good bite can do.
Sorry,
and that's
I
really
missed-
all olfactories. The olfactory transports you into what it
so
was like to
sorry.
in that
But
cave and taste it.
when we were there, like we got to eat this cheese sitting in this old historic stone house right on the property, and like you're in the middle of the farm, the buffalo are all around. It just was spectacular. And like,
But water buffalo are huge. They are very docile, actually. But because they're so big, like one like
horn
head
could
swat,
knock you out. Yeah.
to like hit a fly away and you'd be knocked out. Our daughter was trying to run around and play. And I love this cheese. And I also get a yeastiness to it. So this with the beer is just like a match made in heaven for me.
and
Okay.
pairing with the salami di manzo.
Oh, y'all, this
My
is like a specialty.
Goodness, I am so excited about this. This is
Smell that puppy.
actually an amazing product. This is 100% Wagyu beef. So this is some premium beef products. We very rarely have access to really incredible beef products. Sometimes Bresaola, but not really all that much other opportunities. So this has fresh thyme, red wine in it.
And black pepper.
And
Fresh
black
thyme,
pepper.
black pepper, and Cabernet.
And Tony is the maker. He's based out of the Midwest, and he grew up in an Italian family that they were actually curing some of their own salamis. And so he kind of fell into it and started bussing tables at his family's restaurant when he was 12 years old, and came onto the scene a handful of years ago and has just been making unbelievably spectacular products. And this is one of my favorite munching salamis. I love it. We typically sell it sliced in the shop in thin slices. Here we're getting more of a small format experience, and this is my first bite of it.
And that is something that's crazy to me to explore if you still have your other big chunk next to you. So the ollie that you got, the Napoli, clearly this was already thin sliced on a machine. The way that this tastes on your palate is going to taste different than if you had cut this thicker. Even though the flavor is the exact same, it's all about what is the ratio of how those fats and proteins and everything hits your tongue in that sweet, salt, bitter, sour, and umami. So for this salami that we're doing right now, the salami di manzo, you could cut it very thin, or we cut ours a little bit on the bias thicker, but you could also cut this like into matchsticks, or you could cube it. And the sensation of it being cut differently is gonna make it feel like it tastes different.
Cubed with like tomatoes and mozzarella and like a little like Italian salad.
Oh yeah. It's the same, like,
So I'm going for my little bite here with my cheese. I'm gonna go with the rind.
yeah, with this, I think you can go with the rind with when you have the salami on it. And well, it's what I was saying about cutting it differently and the texture will matter. Is it's, to me, if anybody out there has ever had soup, and when you normally eat soup with a spoon, depending on what soup it is, but then say you don't have a spoon and you drink it out of a bowl, it feels like it tastes different, even though it's the same soup. And I think it's all about how it's hitting everywhere in your mouth.
Yep.
When you eat with a spoon, it's the sensation of the metal on your tongue first, or whatever it is, and then allowing the food to touch your palate versus immediately hitting your tongue all around.
All right, that was really good. I love the mouthfeel in particular on that.
No sweet and tangy mustard
And now
cheese.
I'm gonna go with a little of that acid and spice.
And what are some of the olives that are in this mixture? I see corny cabras, arbequinhas maybe, some gordals.
Yeah, that looks about right.
Predominantly Spanish olives mix, yeah. So from Spain, sourced through Losada. And I don't know if we said that the Salami di Manzo is from Tempesta, is the company out of Illinois. You might have said that.
Love this product. 100% beef. They typically focus on 100% Berkshire pork. So most of their other products that you can get on the market are actually Berkshire pork, antibiotic free, super delicious. But this right here is just spectacular. This makes me incredibly happy.
And I really like the brininess of this huge Gordal olive. So not all olives taste the same. If you're not an olive lover, try them out differently. But I like the brininess of it with the richness of those two.
That is wonderful.
With that
Yeah,
cheese
you're right.
meat.
That's a good pairing.
Oh, have I mentioned it's in my favorite class?
It's wonderful.
Okay. John's favorite is yours favorite cheese
don't
and
have
honey or cheese and
I
chocolate?
don't have a favorite. I love them all. I like eating cheese and meats and jams and whatever.
I'm a savory girl. I like the savory.
This is spectacular.
Although, honestly, a piece of chocolate on here would not hurt my feelings either. Okay, so let's cheers and get ready to ground ourselves and go to pairing number
Pairing number 3. It's a good beer. It's a good beer. Now you can consider moving to like a darker red wine as we move into pairings number 3, 4, and 5. If you wanted to start progressing along that path.
Just know the really big heavy reds, the tannin structure can often fight with the texture of cheese, and they can compete for who gets to be on your palate. Yeah. So you might just lose a little flavor.
Word of caution there.
So if you like reds, I'd say stick to lighter to medium bodied. And then again, you like the big mamas, like my mama, go for it.
Just have fun with it.
Okay, next
Awesome,
up,
y'all.
we're doing like a semi-soft and a firm cheese. So in our 101, we would talk about semi-soft, firm, and hard, which really comes down to how you age it and how big you leave the curds when you're setting the curd, which is a process of making cheese. I will leave those for another day as we dive right into another cheesemaker that we've personally visited in Spain and seen a production of. Also has wild fame and popularity, Drunken Goat. So
We were not allowed to take pictures of this.
proprietary, yes.
This cheesemaker is awesome. And it's like, how did they decide at one point that soaking a wheel of cheese in wine was a good idea? I'm almost 100% convinced that it was not just an accident. It was a bunch of people sitting around drinking good wine, drinking good cheese, or eating good cheese, and they're like, what if we just figure out a way to make this all work together? And we have what translates to goat with wine, Drunken Goat.
And literally we saw it is sitting in huge baths of
Doble pasta. This type of wine is doble pasta, so it's
and it like spills out, and the floor is dyed purple.
Yeah, and you have big gloves to reach in to get the wheels out. And they soak there for between 48 hours to 72 hours. And what's amazing, right? The wine coats the exterior, but the cheese itself is bright white. You can see that here on my piece, right? Dark purple, bright white. And that's because the wine itself infuses just on the edge, and some of the aromatics incorporate themselves into the paste. But goat's milk cheese, goats have the ability to digest beta carotene, and so when they're eating the food, whatever they're foraging on, they end up digesting that beta carotene, and the paste, the milk, will always sort of remain white during aging. So you get this really beautiful stark contrast, which I quite love.
Yeah, so if you've looked, before you eat it all, look on your plate, and this is our goat's milk cheese, and it is a bright white. And now, as you know, it's because goats can process those beta carotenes. Cows cannot. So if they are out eating grasses, they're cheese will be more straw, yellow hued. And then sheep are in between to a lesser extent, so theirs will be more ivory hued.
Yeah.
Goat's milk cheese, as we talked about, each one, the species affects the flavor style, the flavor components. Goat's milk cheese is known for being also tangy, but more acidic, minerally, something bright. We call it bright on our palate. It kind of picks it up. When we talk about acid, it's not bad. It means it makes your mouth water. You produce saliva on the sides of your tongue. A little bit of citrus zest sometimes, and then as goat's milk cheese ages out, oftentimes you can get even a little caramel or butterscotch note on it. Yeah, and this one you can eat the bite with the rind on it and everything. It's just the cheese.
It's so good.
Dunked.
So super glad that we get this cheese. I think that it's just a beautiful product. And we have it paired with jamon sec.
Oh, so this is our first cured whole muscle. So again, now you know that, like, and it's obvious, but sometimes we don't just stop to think about it, and we're just eating and consuming. So as we consume information instead, you can tell coarse ground as one preparation versus just taking a whole muscle and curing it. And the art of curing a whole muscle can actually be pretty challenging, so that oxygen doesn't get into little crevices and molds. And sometimes that happens, and oftentimes it's still edible and you can just clean that part out. But curing is the process of controlling moisture loss, trying to do it rapidly so that a product is not rotting. And while that may sound gross, I love food science and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is comes from the rear haunches of the pig. So 100% pork.
Baby got back. It's that back hip.
100% pork. It comes from Trois Petits Cochons. It's a really award-winning producer of cured meats and salamis in this country. They also do pâtés. They've been based out of Greenwich Village in New York City since, I think, early 70s. And they just, it's a French-style dried ham. And so throughout the course of European countries, there's different sort of approaches to curing the muscles. There's Parma ham. There is Iberico ham. There's jamon sec, jambon sec. So there's lots of different ways that they can do it. So this is aged for 14 months with salt, resulting in this very beautiful, delicate, rich melt in your mouth.
And I do think it's fun to note, it's kind of like many people call anything that is a sparkling white wine, they'll call it champagne. But champagne is actually a very specific wine from a specific region made with specific grapes. All the other stuff are sparkling wines, but that's the family. There's champagne from France, Prosecco from Italy, and Cava from Spain. So similarly, you have prosciutto from Italy, you have jambon from France, and then you have jamon from Spain. And they are all, it depends on the preparation, but they all are known for their own flavor profiles, generally speaking.
It's very sweet.
I know. And it's just,
slightly nutty.
I love the salt on it. The sweet, the nuttiness. Some people don't like the fat. I don't find this fat offensive at all. It's very delicate. It's not too big or greasy, not too stringy.
That pairing is spectacular.
This is kind of a delicate dance.
It brings the sweetness of the cheese out. And there's tropical fruit notes. It is stunning. That makes me really happy. I love it. I love that pairing. So thank you.
You gotta keep going. I took a really big bite.
No, that's fine. I will. So really enjoy it. In some cases, a meat that's sliced this thin, take a little bite, lay it flat on your tongue, and sort of let the fat melt a little bit. Let it sort of coat your palate. That's part of the experience here, is that over 14 months, this fat has become so delicate that it'll maybe melt on your tongue and really just create this really fun, beautiful play.
My dad, I never realized that, I don't really like the word foodie personally, but when I was growing up, I would have these amazing food experiences with my father. And we would put something on our palate, and we had a contest to see who could keep it there the longest, which gets a little weird, but the whole goal was to really taste it all over your tongue. And the old science says that, as we were talking about on your tongue, that there's a tongue map. And we all taste sweet here, salty here, bitter here, sour here, umami here. And the new science shows that actually our tongues are like a fingerprint. and the taste buds on them are not isolated in certain regions. And that's why, as we were talking about at the beginning, some people can taste more of one thing than another. It really comes down to those specific taste buds and their orientation on your palate. That's what makes that experience fun to put it across there.
It's been one of my favorite pairings in a long, long time. That was amazing.
I think when we're looking for a good pairing, we're looking for contrasting flavors that work well together. So think sweet and salty. It's very classic to put honey on a blue cheese, or drink a blue cheese with sherry or port because they're sweet, and blue cheese is known for being really salty. It's also a great pairing when you find light flavors that work well together. So for instance, salt and salt. But when you're bringing together those complementary flavors, you don't want it to be aggressive or overwhelm your palate. Instead, they almost balance each other out into this perfect dance. And then the other thing we're looking for is that nobody outshines the other. As a dance partner, they both let each other shine, and it goes back and forth on your palate, and you don't lose either one.
Yeah, when you said like with like, I thought of umami, steak with mushrooms, right? Like that is a very classic kind of combination, and so there's a lot of umami on this plate, but in this case it was the sweetness of the experience. It kind of just like, it's still there, it's still going. It's pretty awesome.
Umami is a flavor, so just I think good to take a quick pause. What is umami? Is hard to describe. It's like John just said, mushrooms are most often associated with umami.
I mean,
it's
hard.
Not earthiness, but it's almost like this
savoriness is what they would kind of imply as savoriness. But it was discovered not longer than 40, 50 years ago, and so it's still sort of a new taste that they're studying. So it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Soy sauce would be another umami. Monosodium glutamate.
Also salty, but you get both of them.
Both of them. Yep.
Okay.
Totally.
I think we should go on.
Shall we? Cheers, yo.
Gonna need a bigger boat, aka a bigger beer. Okay.
Awesome.
Next up, we have our fourth pairing.
Yes.
Okay. We are moving. This is still semi-soft to firm. So semi-soft, when we say it, you can bend it without it breaking. What's great about semi-soft cheeses, these are ideal melters. So if you have any left, these are great for grilled cheese, mac and cheese, fondue, that kind of thing, melted into eggs. And it's because of the way the proteins are, and the ratio in there allows when they melt to stay melted, versus like a really hard cheese like Parmigiano Reggiano. It will just get hot and dance, but it tightens back up. Okay, so what are we eating today? Oh, we're eating unique.
This is awesome.
It's
unique.
So we've done cow. We've done a mixture of different cheeses and milk types, and now we're moving to a sheep milk.
The fourth. We've done all the milk types:
and you
water
can smell
buffalo,
it.
goat, cow, and now sheep.
Sheep's milk cheese is known for it's the richest in fat. Well, water buffalo actually, but it's atypical for us to have that. So sheep's milk is rich. It's nutty, like actual nuts and toasted
tastes like
nuts.
Vanilla. Tastes like grass.
I'm getting a really earthy component on this one.
Totally.
You can almost feel the grease in your fingertips. It's not grease, but it's the fat leaping out, and this is money. So if you're like, oh, it's gross, it's greasy, this is the money.
Yeah.
Sheep lactate the shortest of any animal. They also produce the least amount of milk. And so sheep's milk cheeses are much more rare than cheeses made from other species.
So this is unique. So Reggie Jones was in more industrial dairy for most of his life. And then he decided that he wanted to him and his partner, his wife, Kelly, wanted to do their own thing. So they kind of broke out on their own, created Central Coast Creamery in Paso Robles, California. And they started working with some local goat's milk, a little bit of cow's milk. If you ever had the privilege of coming to a shop, we've kind of always sold goat Gouda from them and Seascape, two of their classic cheeses. And they just kind of shot onto the scene really successfully. And Reggie took this as an American Gouda that he took to Holland, the recipe, and had that production occur abroad. But in 2018, he's like, okay, I want to bring this back. I want to do it on my home soil. So now we have this really cool American-made sheep milk Gouda. As Kendall said, sheep milk is really hard to work with and be successful with, but he has created such a great flavor in this. We love Reggie's, the wax color. We love the consistency of the cheese. We love the flavor, the aroma. It just really plays well, and it's a great pun. So it works out perfectly.
And this is one of the rinds that you could bite it just to see what it's like, but it does have a thin paraffin, like painted wax rind. So this rind, you can eat all the way up to it, but really not necessarily intended to be eaten. Like it's not part of the cheese. It was an additive. That's the way we should say it.
All right.
Okay.
Chorizo Iberico.
Oh, I just love this story.
This is from
Texas Iberico.
It's an amazing story.
I didn't know where you're going with
I was going to say Ashley Martin, but really what happened, this is like a really cool history of Texas, right? Texas has some similar landscapes. I was surprised when we traveled through Cordoba, through the southern part of Spain. Mm-hmm. I was like, this could be Texas. It's dry, it's gangly, there's oaks, like dry trees. Like it's amazing. And basically, not too long ago, for the very first time, in the Spanish folks decided to release the heritage breed of Iberico pigs outside of the country, and they chose Texas because it resembled part of Spain, and so they ended up dropping this basically unbelievable genetics into 1,500 acres of land in Texas. And that farm is run by Ashley Martin. And these pigs are eating things like mesquite. They're eating things like acorns,
prickly pear.
And so they're getting all this amazing flavor, which translates into a different flavor profile in the final meat product. And so Texas Iberico was launched originally to be just a raw meat producer. Like they were just going to sell raw meat.
I remember when they first were starting up, and I read an article on them, or somehow found out, and I was like, "Where's the cured meat? Because we don't sell raw meat." I was like, and they're like, "We're not doing that yet. Someday, maybe." And I was like, "No, I want the cured meat." Because one thing we paused didn't say, Iberico ham and Iberico pork from Spain is all delicious. It is a specific breed, as John just said, but they are known for spending a certain life in the pastures and the forest pastures, eating and consuming acorns, which makes for a really delicious and sweet and nutty and interesting flesh. Mm-hmm. So that's the breed that's been brought over. And then ours are eating on similar, but Texas style. And this is one of the only cases in the entire world where the Iberico hog has been allowed out of Spain. I think they've even stopped doing it now. And so it's just this one kind of wild case that we're seeing develop here, and we are one of the representatives of.
Yeah.
And they're winning food awards left and right.
Totally. And so they partner now with different people around the country that actually do the curing, the aging, like the flavor selection. So trying to kind of be true to the Spanish heritage, where the pigs came from, and also for Texas, southern states. So this chorizo iberico is pimenton. It's got a big spice to it. So what you want to do is have a big piece of cheese with the meat, so that if you just do little bits of cheese, might not stand up to the spice of the chorizo. But I just absolutely love the way that aroma of the spicy paprika comes through.
It's still there. Yeah.
It's still there. And I get some of the sweetness, the vanilla notes of the cheese. So.
I actually thought the pairing made the cheese sweeter, with the perception of sweetness, and creamier. It brought out the cream to me. So because the salami has spice and heat on it, the cheese fully brought the cream to the game to kind of subdue that and mellow that. This is also a good example of why you should never do a spicy bite at the beginning of a tasting, because it will, even if you love it, it's going to linger on your palate the whole time, and it kind of nulls your taste buds just a little bit. So that's why we put it towards the end. But I love it with the richness of that sheep's milk. I do think the sheep's milk can stand up to it. In fact, it's showcasing really good full fat creaminess of the sheep milk.
Totally.
Okay.
That was really great. Hopefully y'all loved it too.
And I was like munching on my olives in there in the middle. I like that brininess. Okay.
Cheers.
We're on the home stretch, y'all.
Little palate cleanser, never hurt nobody. That was awesome.
All right, we're going to pairing number 5. And normally, if we were in a Cheese 101, I'd be talking about blue cheeses and/or, okay, we're playing with our food. We love playing with our food. Or we'd also be talking about cheddars. Blue cheeses, as you might or might not be able to see from the slice that you got, the blue mold is inoculated into the vat when it's still in a milk form. And then later you have your hard or your firm cheese and you pierce it and you're not injecting anything into it. But when oxygen hits that mold that's already present in there, that mold is aerobic and that's what allows it to actually mold and develop this veining in blue and green color striations. You gonna show these?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you may see, on a piece like this, you may see a little white molding on the cut edge. And really, that's totally fine. So, I can just kind of rub it off. This has a very beautiful, intense, natural rind here with white mold. So when we cut the cheese, some of that mold will kind of come through a little bit. It's totally edible and it's totally delicious. I love eating
these natural rinds. So when we talked about the rind on the last cheese, it had a painted rind on to protect it. This natural rind is what happens naturally if it's allowed to just age in the caves and they go through the process of affinage or maturation, and you're just wiping it off, patting it down, rubbing it with a cloth. And so that is a natural rind. It basically looks like dirt.
Like dirt, smells like dirt. It'll probably taste like soil.
Yeah, let's use a euphemism y'all might like better. I like my rind to sometimes taste like dirt. That's especially good now if you have moved on to a bigger, bolder red, or like an IPA and like that pininess and woodsiness and that bitter. I would definitely eat a bite of wine with it. So we have an awesome cheese from Wisconsin. This is Red Rock.
It comes from Raleigh Cheese House. So Chris Raleigh is a 4th generation cheesemaker. His great grandfather started producing cheese in the 1920s. Eventually, in like the early 90s, they closed the facility down because it was all industrial cheese, and it's really hard to make money doing that kind of production unless you're on massive scale. But in 2006, Chris and his family decided to restart, but focus on artisanal cheese. He started with a cheese called Dunbarton Blue, which was the first sort of American-made cheddar blue style. And now he's winning awards for this one too, Red Rock. So this comes in the classic like brick log shape that we see American cheddars come in. But what he's done here is he's added blue mold into it. He's also used annatto, which is the orange dye that creates this coloring, and he's doubled the amount that's typical in an American cheddar. So usually an American cheddar is a lighter orange, and this is a very deep, dark orange. And then you've got the natural rind. So this is named after the type of rock that is in the cave that he's aging. So aging the cheeses. So really spectacular. Take a bite. You already did.
I did. It's delicious. I love it.
Makes me happy.
This, if you like it, like a cheddar, a nice minerality, nice acid, but it's just friendly cheese. It's good for somebody who is a novice in the sense that it's like, I don't like fancy cheese. And it's great for somebody who's very sophisticated about their cheeses, meaning all are welcome. And however you see yourself, people like this cheese. It's a great one. Even if you don't like blue cheeses, people will eat it and be like, that's blue. But you're getting a little bit of that cave-like, cellar-like essence, which I love. And then pairing this with the Kleinstein pepperettes.
What do you think the age is? 3 to 6 months? Yeah. Probably.
So good. And then, putting this with these Kleinstein pepperettes. So I'd like to say for the meat, we've done California, we did Illinois, we did Texas, we did New York, and now we're going to Oregon.
So 5 different states represented, 5 amazing makers. And this is Kleinschweine. So this is a German-inspired salami stick that has coriander and caraway. And coriander is another term for cilantro, which is typically used in Texas for a lot of cooking. But this is just really shelf stable. A lot of the history behind cheese and meats is that farmers could stick this stuff in their pockets, go to work, halfway through the day they could eat it for their lunch, and then they could come home. And so without refrigeration, this was an amazing sustainable source food, proteins and fats, and just what you needed. So Elias Castro is a Greek American, and he learned Elias Cairo. What I said,
we're good.
Elias Cairo.
It takes a team, honey. It takes a team.
Well, now I took a bite when I was thinking, but his family loved salami, and so he kind of grew up around it. And when he was in his late teens, early 20s, he went traveling, staged at a salumi maker, and fell in love. And so he came back to Portland, and he decided that he really wanted to focus on creating high quality meats using very fresh ingredients. And when I say very fresh ingredients, did you tell him about the spice room?
Yeah, when we got to go visit them, as they've grown, one of the things is they had to look at how do we make this more simple or more efficient or standardize it. And so they'd always used fresh herbs and dried them themselves. And so instead they moved to purchasing dried herbs, and they made it and they were like, it was good, it was fine, but it wasn't the same. So they went back to their original practices. So even though they've grown and now they have distribution across the United States, they are still fresh and then drying all of their own herbs to be included.
And they have a whole spice room, just a room dedicated to the spices.
And he would go, and Elias was like, Eli, it's like, smell this one. Now smell this one. Now smell this one. They also use, or are supported by hiring a lot of folks who have previously been incarcerated. And that's one of their business models to help give them a leg up and get back in society and help make a living for themselves. And in fact, they and, as we said, Texas Iberico and many of the producers on this plate are Good Food Award winners. And the Good Food Awards are out of California, recognizing foods and makers that are producing in a way that's tasty, authentic, and responsible. And those sound like buzzwords, like very generic categories, but you have to prove how your product meets each one of those categories. So, y'all, this is one of my favorite tastings. Have I said that yet?
That pairing was outstanding. The Kleinschweine just appears to be a very delicate flavor. But when paired with the blue and the cheddar, it exploded. And
I'm here.
The caraway, oh my gosh, that is like...
I'm glad we're ending on a good bite for you.
Cheers to that.
So go mix and mingle.
Yeah.
Try out the different bites and see what other flavor components you like. If you have leftover sweet and tangy mustard seeds, these are great on like a breakfast sandwich, any sort of leftover meat sandwiches.
Anything.
I love these in deviled eggs. This is like my secret topper to deviled eggs. But anyway, thank you for doing cheese and charcuterie with us. Thank you for either buying it for yourself or gifting it to somebody else. Our personal mission is to spread joy one bite at a time, and we hope we've done that with you today. We have 5 core principles. 1, passion with purpose. Passion is what gets us up in the morning, but purpose is why people pay us to do it. Passion gives us fuel, while purpose gives us direction. And basically it all is to say that we want to love what we do, but we want to make sure there's a greater reason for it and a greater cause. And supporting these makers and getting them to you and telling their labors of love is part of that story and keeping them around for a long time. 2, to
be a juggernaut of awesome.
So it's not good enough to just be awesome by yourself, but to be a juggernaut is an overwhelming force. How are we creating positivity in the world and making it better than when we left it? Number 3.
Be true to yourself and to others.
However, whatever that means to you, we want people to show up and be welcome in our business and the skin they're in with their lived experiences. We also know all we can be is who we are, and that should be good enough for us. And that we're learning and we'll make mistakes along the way, but as long as we're honest in that journey and always ethical, that's who we want to be. Number 4.
All right, family first, then business.
However you define family, adopted, chosen, 4-legged, we go to work to make money to pay for put a roof over our head and food in our bellies and pay our medical needs, but not only for us, but for the people and things we care about, and we've got to keep that in perspective. And number 5.
Improve every day.
There's no best, there's only better. So if you loved this, please share it with the world. We are a small business and we want to stick around for a long time. And so don't keep us a secret. We'd love for you to tell other folks about it, rate us online, spread the word, send a gift. And if we can improve some way, then please reach out to us directly. We'd love to directly know how we can make it better and make up for anything if we made any mistakes with you. With that, thanks for helping us do good, eat good. Thanks for being a part of Antonelli's Cheese. If you're ever in Austin or if you live here, come into the shop. We'll give you lots of samples and Kendall and John,
Thanks for being with us, y'all.
signing out.
Bye.